Al-Fatiha for your marhumin, for the marhumin whose names are on the wall in the back, and for all of the shuhada fiqh Jafariya. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma ighfirhum warhamhum wasfihim bijawar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من يوم أول ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاءك المنافقون قالوا نشهد إنك لرسول الله والله يعلم إنك لرسوله والله يشهد إن المنافقين لكاذبون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The topic for this week is about basically Surah Munafiqun, the Tafsir of Surah Munafiqun. And when you look at Surah Munafiqun, this word munafiq, it's not just something that we look at in the past and we say, you know what, these were the people that were munafiqun, munafiqeen. No. This nifaq, it exists in everyone. This hypocrisy, it exists in everyone, but the munafiqeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers to be munafiqeen, those are different than the munafiqeen that you and I engage with today. Meaning what? Munafiqeen, what is a munafiq? A munafiq is someone whose actions and their words do not align. Someone who says one thing, but they do something different. Or someone who does one thing and says something completely different. But when you look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is He saying in this verse? This verse is the very first verse of Surah Munafiqun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إِذَا جَاءَكَ الْمُنَافِقُونَ قَالُوا نَشْهَدُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ. When the munafiqun, they come to you and they say, we swear that you are Rasulullah. We swear that you are the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we bear witness that you are surely the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that you surely are His Prophet. Allah knows that you're His Prophet. And Allah bears witness that the hypocrites are surely liars. What are the hypocrites coming in testifying to? They're saying that we bear witness, they're testifying to the prophethood of the Holy Prophet. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of this verse, He says that I know that you're my prophet. And I know that the hypocrites are lying. I know that the hypocrites are lying. What are these hypocrites lying about? That's what the question is. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to this person that comes and testifies, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abdahu, someone who testifies that the Holy Prophet is the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deemed this person to be a hypocrite and a liar? Why has He deemed him to be a hypocrite and a liar? This individual, whoever it was, or these individuals. Look at the way the word is, the whole surah is phrased, or this verse is phrased. Munafiqun, it's already been established that this person is a munafiq. It's already been established that this person is a munafiq. Now he's coming and testifying to the prophethood of Rasulullah. That means that this person isn't a munafiq in regards to the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger, but he's a munafiq in regards to something else. Why? Because it's already stating that this person is a munafiq. But now when this person testifies that yes, I bear witness that the Prophet is the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? We know that he is lying. The munafiqun are liars. So what is this lie about? That's what we need to look at. When you look at the word munafiq, nifaq, all these words, they're used more than 20 times in this surah. Munafiqun was revealed for these hypocrites. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are other verses of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He equates munafiqun with kufr. He says that kuffar and munafiqun, they will be in the same place in hellfire. What kind of munafiq is this? Is this the munafiq that you, or this hypocrite that you and I will meet today? Meaning what? A mu'min. Can a mu'min be a munafiq? Say one thing, do something else. If you say one thing, you do something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? These people are liars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse of the Quran, He says that these people are liars. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says that what? A mu'min will never lie. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he said that a mu'min he can do other things, but a mu'min will never lie. So if a mu'min will never lie, that means that a mu'min will never be a munafiq. A mu'min will never be a munafiq. What are these verses of the Quran referring to? And that's what I want to look at, because there's a whole narration too from Amir al-Mu'mineen, where one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they ask him, they say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, we've heard narrations or interpretations of some of the surahs of the Quran from Salman, from Abu Zar, and some of the hadiths that we haven't heard from anyone else. And he said that I myself, I've heard you give out this interpretation, but I haven't heard from anyone else. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he looks at him and he says to him, look, in the time of the Holy Prophet, there were 4 types of people that memorized hadiths. There wasn't a 5th group. There were 4 types of people that memorized hadith, and inshallah I'll get to that. But in regards to these verses, the first verse of this first verse of Surah Munafiqun, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam Baqir alayhi salam, when Imam Baqir alayhi salam was asked about the interpretation of these verses, who are these munafiqun? They said that these munafiqun are those people that believed in the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen and then they went back on their word. They believed in the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen and then they went back on their word. Where did this surah, Surah Munafiqun, is a Madani surah. They believed in the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen and then they went back on their word. So in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those people are munafiqun who have rejected the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen after accepting it. Those are true munafiqun in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what does that mean about munafiqeen that we see every day? Nifaq, this is a characteristic that should never be in an individual. Yes, these verses are regarding those people that were hypocrites in terms of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But does that mean that this characteristics of nifaq is something that we should have towards others? No. You come meet a mu'min brother one way, as soon as you turn your back, or as soon as they turn their back, you're something completely different. You come and say to your mu'min brother one thing, as soon as they turn their back, you act completely different. We come to the masjid, we act one way, but when we're out, we're doing something completely different. Hypocrisy between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hypocrisy between me and another mu'min. This exists. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want in His servant. He doesn't want this in His servant. In regards to that narration, Amir al-Mu'mineen, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, Sulaim bin Qais, he's the one who asked. Sulaim bin Qais Hilali, who's written the book where Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says that it's wajib for every Shia to have this book in their household. Sulaim bin Qais, he asked Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, I've heard some regarding tafsir of the Quran from Salman, from Abu Zar, from Miqdad, that I haven't heard from others. And I've heard this tafsir come from you too. And some of these hadiths, and the explanation of these hadiths, I've heard from you, but I haven't heard from others. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says to him, he says, Sulaim, you've asked me, now that you've asked me, I want you to know and I want you to understand the answer. In the hands of the people at that time, meaning in terms of tafsir, in terms of hadith, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, in the hands of the people, there's right, there's wrong, there's truthfulness, there's lies, there's abrogating, there's abrogated, and general, and specific, and decisive, and allegorical. Meaning when it comes to the interpretation of the Quran, all of this exists, and this was in the hands of the people. You still see it today, that's what we have today. And he goes on to say that there were people that memorized everything that was said word for word, and there were people that were delusional. There were people that did not memorize it word for word. And he said that in the time of Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet, in his own time period, people lied against him. In his own time period, when the Holy Prophet was still alive, people lied against him. Meaning what? Meaning that in the time of the Holy Prophet, people ascribed narrations to him when he didn't even narrate them. They had said, we heard from the Holy Prophet's mouth, him saying this, when in reality, he had never said this. Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying that there are people like that. And you see that there are people like that exist today too, everywhere in the world. In any society, people like that exist. So for people to say, no, in the time of the Holy Prophet, all of those companions, they were all truthful, that's absolutely wrong. How can they all be absolutely truthful? In any given society, you'll have liars in that society. You look at the society of any of the prophets. In the time of Nabiullah Ibrahim alayhi salam, the people that even followed Nabiullah Ibrahim, they got liars amongst them. The people that followed Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam, you had liars amongst them. The people that followed Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, you had liars amongst them. So all of a sudden, now the people that are following the Holy Prophet, you're not going to have any liars amongst them? How is that possible? But Amir al-Mu'mineen, who goes on to say that in the time of the Holy Prophet, people were already belying the Holy Prophet. And after he passed away, they were belying him even more. Meaning what? More narrations were being attributed to him that were never said. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says that, understand that when it came to these people, there were 4 types of people in regards to understanding what the Holy Prophet had said. And he says the first type of person was a hypocrite man who manifested Iman pretending to be a Muslim. Meaning amongst the people, amongst the companions of the Holy Prophet, one type of individual was a munafiq who pretended that he was Muslim. And Amir al-Mu'minin, he goes on to say, neither did he consider it a sin nor anything wrong with deliberately lying in regards to the narrations of the Holy Prophet. So there were people in the time of the Holy Prophet that were deliberately making up hadith. Hatta, not just in our books, pick up Sunni books. Why did Umar ibn Khattab beat up Abu Hurairah? He beat him bloody. He beat him to the point, and then he told Abu Hurairah that I don't want you to ever recite any narrations in front of me. Why? Because they were already making up hadith. So Amir al-Mu'mineen says, yes, one type of individual that the Holy Prophet was surrounded with was this type, that didn't care, didn't think that it was sin to attribute lies to the Holy Prophet. So they made up narrations. What did they do? When people took the Khilafat from Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes, this is a very long narration, he goes that when people took the Khilafat from me, these people that took the Khilafat from me, they ended up making these people that were making up lies, they gave them governorships in their hukumat. This was one group. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes, then there's another group. This group, they did their best to memorize what the Holy Prophet was saying. But there were things that they were missing out. Meaning what? Meaning that it might be possible. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes that, meaning that it was possible that the Holy Prophet had given one command one time. They heard that command. But later on, he gave a command that was taking back that previous command. And they didn't hear that command. The abrogating and the abrogated. And Amir al-Mu'mineen says that because these people only heard one part and they didn't hear the other part, they did not have the complete picture of Islam. They didn't have the complete picture of Islam. So what did they do? They acted on only what they knew. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes, there was another group. They memorized Every single thing that the Holy Prophet said, word for word, they knew what was abrogated, they knew what was abrogating. These were the groups of individuals that were surrounded by the Holy Prophet. So when you have hypocrites in that group, when you have mu'mineen in that group, and you have munafiqun in that group, it becomes necessary to do what? It becomes necessary to understand which individual was a mu'min, which individual was truly a munafiq. Why? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says that munafiqeen, what did they end up doing? This is why Islam today, the majority of Islam is been given or taken by who? The munafiqeen. It was given by the munafiqeen of that time, and today the majority of Muslims have taken that Islam that was given by the munafiqeen. And because of that, this is what Islam is in today. So when it comes to researching and looking into who was a munafiq, and this is what Muslims don't want to do. This is what Muslims don't want to do. Why? Because if they start, it's going to end with Shia Islam left on this earth. There will be no other school of thought except the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt. That's it. And you look at the way the Muslims today, and the Sunni majority Muslims, the countries that most of them are in, look at how they're living. They're not willing to give up that power. But this nifaq, you have to understand that it exists not just in them, but it exists in Shias also. Saying one thing, doing another. In regards to the wilayat of the Ahlul Bayt itself. In regards to the wilayat of the Ahlul Bayt. And this is why when the Imam comes, who's going to come out against the Imam? Is it just the kuffar? No, it's not. You see that the Shias are also coming out against the Imam. Why? Because that hypocrisy that was hidden within them, that's when it comes out. That's when it comes out. Inshallah, we'll continue with Tafsir of Surah Munafiqun. Just 11 verses. But just explanation of all these verses, it takes time. And this narration of Amir al-Mu'mineen, I don't have a chance to finish. Inshallah, next week we'll look into it. But I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keeps us safe. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keeps Imam of our time safe. Hastens His appearance, makes us, our families, and anyone that's willing to sacrifice their life for Him and His cause, be able to sacrifice their life for Him and His cause. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Please, once again, recite Surah Fatih for your marhumeen, for the marhumeen whose names are on the wall in the back, and for the shuhada of Fiqh Jafariyah. Bismillah. Bismillah. اللهم اغفرهم وارحمهم واسكنهم بجوار محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد